First of all, I can't thank you enough for the testimony. It was extremely helpful. And Kate, I would have an entirely different visceral reaction to someone who would do that to a parent of mine and I applaud you for going through what you're going through. I don't know any easy way to ask the question, so I'm going to ask you to give me the benefit of the doubt. If my question doesn't come across properly, please ask me to clarify. As you can tell, I'm in the elderly category, despite the fact that I'm a relatively new legislator. I always worry about people my age and about our reaction to people your age telling me that I've got dementia or other issues of ability. And I worry about the impact on the care providers who are attempting to provide assistance to me while I'm easing and by the way, I'm not going through that right now. Although my wife just texted me and she said, yes, you are. And so, but we're dealing with an elderly parent of my wife at this point. And those a willingness to give up those rights. If someone were to tell me, as an example, tomorrow your vision's such you can't drive, I'm probably going to fight that pretty hard. And so my concern is, do we create an unintended consequence? And if so, can we get your guidance to avoid it? Because I'm a co-sponsor on all of these bills, and I wholeheartedly support it. But I want to make sure that we don't inadvertently put seniors in a position where they are denied the care they need because of the litigation risk of something, particularly as it relates to a financial allegation. I am a CPA, and I do extensive fraud and forensic work. That's what my practice is. And my House Bill 985 gives the Auditor General a fraud and forensic capability, and will be designed specifically for this, because the cost of dealing with some of these issues can be prohibitive for your offices to want to get someone to do if it's a $10,000 crime. And so I designed that specifically into it. So the question I would ask for you is, how do we deal with the potential transition issues of someone from full mental cognitive abilities to less so, while at the same time our reimbursement rates for caregivers of seniors has been negatively affected, particularly under Medicaid, and the ability to get people that are not rotating on such a rapid basis. The provider of the care for the senior is finding themselves in a continual training mode where the turnover rates might be as much of 100%, to where people are being inadvertently accused of crimes, particularly in the financial area. Kate, in my mind, there's no inadvertent crime. Anybody who's doing that, and I support 100%. There's no reason somebody in that work should be having type of sexual relations with a senior. But I do worry about this transition issue and the senior who says, look, I'm in full cognitive ability and my abilities, don't you tell me what I can and can't do. And what someone's perception of a crime, as an example, if someone were to tell an elderly person, you need to go to a more stepped up facility with greater care, I will tell you, I've seen children say that the facility's doing that merely to get more money from the parent. And that if that's now declared to be a felony, you're not going to have any care providers in Pennsylvania. So how do we do this to where we don't make being in the field such an occupational hazard?
So let me tell you a little bit about our association, PHCA. We advocate on behalf of more than 81,000 Pennsylvania seniors in nursing homes, assisted living residences, and personal care homes across the entire state. And we also represent the 40,000 caregivers in those facilities who provide compassionate, high-quality care each and every day. But it's important to note that I am speaking to you today not just as an advocate and not just as a representative from the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, but as a family member of someone who currently resides in a long-term care facility. I think I told the committee this story last year, but about a year ago, my family made the very difficult decision to admit my grandfather into a nursing home. He's now in a dementia unit in an assisted living residence. 5 years ago, we learned that he had dementia. And last year, we came to the very hard realization that he could not live at home unsupervised anymore. And we certainly put up a fight against that decision. Now, some members of this committee may have had to make a similar decision at that point, at some point, or you're currently struggling with that decision for a loved one. Representative Ryan, you shared a little bit about your story. So elder abuse is not only an important issue for PHCA and for our membership and for thousands of families across the Commonwealth. It is a very important issue for me and my family. And that's why I'm proud to represent the providers who belong to PHCA, because their number one priority is the safety of the residents entrusted to their care. And please know that we have zero tolerance for actions that jeopardize anyone's safety, dignity, or well-being. And the results show just that. Over the past several years, we've seen tremendous improvements in the quality care provided to our residents. Even in just the last 4 years, Pennsylvania has shown improvement in 19 of 23 national quality measures set for this sector. So given those statistics and the improvements in overall care in our state, you might ask yourself, why is combating elder abuse still such a critical issue? And why are we having this conversation? Because unfortunately, even with every precaution our providers take today, healthcare and long-term care is a human business. And unfortunately, mistakes may happen. Last year, the United States Senate chose to focus on elder abuse in a series of hearings as well. And from those hearings came many new proposals and safeguards. For instance, the Special Focus Facility List was amplified and now reports out to consumers on a monthly basis, warning families about facilities on the CMS watch list in every state. The Do Not Proceed icon on the Nursing Home Compare website was born, in which a single isolated instance of abuse will spur the introduction of a glaring red icon next to a nursing home on that website. And countless pieces of legislation obviously were introduced after those hearings. Now, our national organization, the American Healthcare Association, was asked to participate in those hearings. And I'm going to say now what they said then. Abuse and neglect have no place in the nursing home setting or in any healthcare setting. And even one report of abuse or neglect, though not a sign of systemic failure, is one too many. And that's why we at PHCA and the other stakeholders with me today have made it a priority to work closely with the chairman, with this committee, with the Wolf administration, to ensure that those protections are in place. So whether it's this series of bills or whether it's the Older Adult Protective Services Act, we are proud to help lead this fight. And our providers are proud to lead this fight as well. Even in the face of many external challenges, PHCA members are going above and beyond to prevent these instances of abuse. In addition to the countless federal and state regulatory requirements already in place, we have members here in Bucks County even, such as the Wilmac Corporation in Langhorne, Representative Farry's district. They have developed policies and procedures which establish a number of checks and balances that will further safeguard residents to the best of their ability. And we can point to members, I'm sure, in each of your districts across the state who have instituted similar protections. However, again, this is a human business and mistakes will inevitably happen. So legislative packages like this are another avenue to preventing abuse. And for the most part, PHCA supports the legislation being presented today. However, we do have concerns regarding unintended consequences and additional undue burdens and unfunded mandates that will inevitably be placed on providers. For instance, Representative Mosser's House Bill 397. Currently, our members already have individual policies in place to address the use of video monitoring devices in resident care areas, and they work directly and diligently with families on a case-by-case basis to protect dignity and privacy. So again, we're happy to work with the committee as well as Representative Mosser and the other sponsors over the next few weeks and months to make sure that this legislation works for residents, providers, and staff, and we stand united with you in the fight against elder abuse. But I would be remiss if I didn't say this. If we want to truly combat issues in long-term care and assure that providers are able to attract the best staff and the most dedicated individuals and root out as best we can every instance of elder abuse, we must address the harsh realities facing this sector over the next few years, and I am begging this committee to do just that. I mentioned external challenges earlier. Inadequate Medicaid reimbursement, a legal climate that leads to millions of Medicaid dollars pouring out of this state each and every day, a regulatory climate that rivals that of nuclear power and the TSA, and a workforce crisis that I guarantee keeps every stakeholder sitting next to me and every provider across the state up every night, all night. The perfect storm is not a George Clooney movie about a fishing boat. The perfect storm is what is happening to long-term care right now here in Pennsylvania. And in the third oldest state in terms of population in the entire country, that storm stands to threaten the care for tens of thousands of residents in the years to come. Because we are roughly 3 to 5 years away from the silver tsunami, in which the baby boomers will age into the demographic most in need of long-term services and supports. Our fastest growing demographic right now today is 85 years of age and older. And here in Pennsylvania, providers are for the first time operating at margins that have fallen below 0%. In fact, the average operating margin for one of Pennsylvania's providers today is negative 2.8%. Our members take very seriously the trust placed in them to care for our loved ones. They take every step possible to ensure their well-being. So let's ensure that we return that favor to them. Again, I am very grateful for the opportunity to share this testimony, and we at PHCA stand ready to work with you on any and all long-term care issues before this committee and the legislature. Thank you.
As you know, we've had a number of these discussions about it. Zach, you used a comment that in 3 to 5 years, the financial issues, and you've heard me say the comment in 3 to 5 years, the Commonwealth's financial ship, if not turned around, will be an unmitigated disaster. Mm-hmm. What I would think would be useful, and to the chairman and minority and majority chair, I'd encourage us to have a separate hearing on the entire issues related to the viability of the long-term care model. And I want to be very candid. I mean, I think it's incredibly important, the perspective that I, as a senior, and I'm not going to say elder anymore, but as a senior, particularly someone who walked across the United States when I was in my mid-60s, we all have to accept responsibility, seniors and others, about relative to the cost of this system. So, Zach, you used 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you two very pointed questions. Is the current model of reimbursement in such a way that you can ensure the viability of the industry long term, number one? And number two, the more important issue in my mind is the way that we have our tax policies in the Commonwealth established actually causing a grain of the Commonwealth that's more severe, that will exacerbate your 3 to 5 year program, that will basically say that it's not 3 to 5 years, but might be 2 to 4?
I think it's, to answer your first question, no. So the way things are now in terms of Medicaid reimbursement, and I hope that I'm getting to your question, in 3 to 5 years, this continuum will no longer be viable. And I don't know that it will even last that long, because Ann talked about a workforce crisis. I mentioned Medicaid reimbursement. I talked about the legal climate, the regulatory climate. And again, with Pennsylvania being the third oldest state in the entire country, that's really frightening to me as someone with a grandfather in a nursing home, with someone whose mother, aunt, and 3 cousins work in long-term care. I'm worried that this system will not be able to sustain itself for the next few years. And, you know, you only have to look at Pennsylvania's long-term care system over the last 2 or 3 years, where we have seen extreme volatility in the market. We've seen sales, we've seen reorganizations, we've seen changes of ownership. And then you go around the country and you look at states like Connecticut, Massachusetts, Texas, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, South Dakota. You see those things, but you also see closures. In Massachusetts alone, last year, 35 nursing homes closed. So I look at a state like Pennsylvania. I don't want that to happen here, and I am afraid we are already on that path unless we do something about it.
Yeah, I just want to echo the comment, and it's the last issue I'll make on it. We, and I'm now speaking as someone who's over 65, we in my age group have to recognize that if we don't reverse the trend that the independent fiscal office indicated, that younger people are moving out of the Commonwealth, if we don't reverse that trend, your industry is a failed business model.
Yes.
I have worked for decades doing turnarounds of financially troubled companies. This organization, and I was with the hospital group that got rid of all of our senior care facilities, was we recognize it's a failed model under the current reimbursement. And it can't be. Because no matter what happens, those costs are going to be there about who pays it. And you had some good points. Margie, again, I appreciate your comments. But I truly do. You do have great comments. But for those of us on this committee, we cannot just sit back and keep putting Band-Aids on this. This requires some incredibly painful, difficult, honest discussions with seniors, caregivers, and providers and hospital groups, or this thing was going to fail, and time is no longer on our side.